my name is Kat, and today I have some book reviews for you guys. So I have 4 books to talk about today, 4 books that I have read over the last couple of weeks here. I don't know, when was my last book reviews video? You know what, that's not important. What's important is that I have 4 books sitting on the floor right here that I'm going to talk about today. So let's do that. So the first book I have here is A Short History of the Girl Next Door by Jared Reck. And this is the BOOKSPLOSION Book of the Month pick for October. We're working with Penguin Random House on this one, and the live show is actually happening this Saturday. So I'll put all the details about that down below if you're interested in joining us for our in-depth discussion. If you haven't heard about this book, it is a standalone contemporary. It's a debut novel, and it's a YA coming-of-age story. We follow a boy named Matt who's been best friends with his neighbor Tabby for years, like since they were babies. But Matt's feelings have actually grown beyond just friendship, and that's already a tricky situation that is further complicated when Tabby starts dating a popular senior. It's a story about friendship and kind of navigating relationships as people grow up and maybe grow apart. It was funny and heartwarming and packed way more of an emotional punch than I was prepared for. And that is kind of all I want to say about this book for now. Like, I definitely think it's the kind of book that's better if you go into it not really knowing much. I think my favorite aspects of this book were definitely the relationships, like the relationships between Matt and Tabby, and also other friendships going on, and the family relationships. Also, Matt, the main character, I really enjoyed his voice. His narration was so funny and really relatable, which I wasn't expecting because he's like a 15-year-old freshman who loves basketball, and I am really not. But I really enjoyed his story and the journey he takes in this book, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing more spoilery details in the live show this weekend. The next book I have here is Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, Book 3, The Ship of the Dead by Rick Riordan. And this is the BOOKSPLOSION Book of the Month pick for November. We're doing a paid promotion with Disney Hyperion, so huge thanks to them. And yeah, as this is the November Book of the Month, I am actually ahead of schedule by having read it already, but I couldn't resist. I couldn't just have this book sitting on my shelf unread. It's the 3rd book in a trilogy. It's the final Magnus Chase book for now. This was a satisfying conclusion. We wrapped up this 3-book arc, but it didn't necessarily feel like we were closing the door entirely on Magnus. Like, he might have more adventures, and I am so here for that. Because this is the 3rd book in a series, I can't get into many details about it if you're unfamiliar with this trilogy. Basically, we're following a 16-year-old boy named Magnus Chase who discovers that he is a descendant of a Norse god, and you know, chaos and shenanigans ensue from there. As with all of Rick Riordan's books, I loved the humor. I just think his writing is so clever and fun. I love the way he plays around with mythology, and I love that he's always introducing us to new characters. Like, we have a really interesting and diverse and just really fun cast of characters here. And I might go so far as to say that this is my favorite completed Rick Riordan series that I've read. It's hard to compare it to the original Percy Jackson and the Olympian series because I read that a while ago, but I did enjoy it more than the Heroes of Olympus series. With the Heroes of Olympus series, we just have so many main characters and there's so many stories going on, but with a series like this one where he narrates from a first-person perspective, we're kind of more grounded in a single character, but we still get to explore all of these stories of the other characters through Magnus's perspective, and I love that. I think Rick Riordan is definitely strongest when he's narrating from a first-person perspective. He's really found his groove now with this series and the Apollo series. Although if you're new to Rick Riordan, I would suggest either this series or the original Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, because those are the best ones to jump in, I feel. Like, there was some crossover in this book, which was really fun, but I do feel like this series does stand really nicely separate from the Greek and Roman mythology. But yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna talk about for now. I'll save the rest of my spoilery thoughts for the live show. I cannot wait. I have so much to say, especially about the last few chapters, which, like, shook me 8 different ways. But yeah, I'll go ahead and put all of the details about the read-along down below. The live show's not happening until the end of November, beginning of December, so you do have plenty of time to get on this series if you haven't and you want to. Next up, I have here Sleeping Giants by SYLVAIN NEUVEL. And I actually didn't read this physical book. I listened to the audiobook, and it was amazing. Earlier this month, I solicited Twitter for some audiobook recommendations, and a good handful of people very enthusiastically recommended Sleeping Giants. So I got the audiobook, and I listened to it, and I was not disappointed at all. It was so good. Story-wise, we have this fascinating concept. Basically, the book starts with the discovery of this giant metal hand that just, like, how old it is and the craftsmanship of it couldn't have been made by humans. There's no way. And that's really what our central mystery is in this book. Like, what is this giant hand? Where did it come from? Are there more body parts scattered throughout the world? What happens if we try to assemble them all? And the story is actually told through records, like through interviews and through like personal recordings and stuff like that. So it just suited the audiobook format so beautifully. Like, I know I would have enjoyed the story if I just read it because it is fascinating. Like, it's a really good story. But having a full audiobook cast read the interviews out loud, it was so well voice acted, and just it was great. So yeah, if you're looking for an audiobook, Sleeping Giants. I really recommend Sleeping Giants. And especially if you enjoyed like the Martian audiobook or the Illuminae audiobook. Like, this isn't quite as sci-fi as those books, but it's told in a similar style, and the audiobook, the voice acting, just brings the story alive in like ways it was meant to be. Like, this is meant to be an audiobook. Like, listen to the audiobook. It's great. Oh, and also, if you're interested in checking out this as an audiobook and you haven't tried Audible yet, I am an Audible affiliate, which means I have like a referral link that you can click and you can get your first month, your first audiobook free. So that link is down below if you want to check it out. And the final book I have to talk about today is There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This is a standalone YA horror/thriller kind of novel. Basically, this book just takes place in a small Nebraska town where teenagers start getting murdered in really gruesome, horrifying ways. Our main character is a girl named Makani, who is kind of an outsider. She only moved to this town within the last year or so, and she has been carrying with her kind of a big secret. And as these murders get more intense, the pressure of having the secret is starting to get to her. We also have a pretty significant romance plot that's happening. Makani is kind of developing and navigating this new relationship with a boy named Ollie, who is also kind of an outsider at their school. Now, for the most part, I did enjoy this book, but I do have some conflicting feelings. I loved the first half, like the building mystery and tension and the developing romance. Like, I was so into the first half of this book. And I don't want to get too spoilery here, but in the second half, we went in a direction that I didn't love, which is very subjective. And like, I didn't hate it. It wasn't like something happened and I was like, oh God, what's happening in this book? It was just like a more gradual shift. And like, as the second half of the story progressed, I found myself feeling a little disappointed. Like, things just weren't playing out the way I expected them to, which, you know, it's kind of ridiculous to say that because you want like a horror thriller novel to surprise you and go in an unexpected direction. But it's hard to explain. It wasn't what I wanted. And it wasn't that it was like bad. It just, I was hoping for something else. Maybe the first half of the book just got my expectations too high because I thought the mystery was gonna be like super cool and blow me away, and it didn't. There were some things about the narration style and like the way we delved into backstory in the second half that just made this book seem not as cohesive as it could have been. But at the same time, I loved the romance, I loved the relationships, I loved the characters. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this one. Also, I did just finish it last night, so like I could still be processing and working out my thoughts. I would still recommend this though, but only if you enjoy both horror and romance in books, because this was a good blend of those two. But yeah, I enjoyed this overall. It was fun. It was a good atmospheric Halloween read, but it didn't blow me away or anything. All right, that is it. Those are my thoughts on the books I read this month, and that is gonna do it for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I will have another video up soon, so I will see you then. Goodbye! Bye!